So when they first initially discovered these gamma ray bursts, and they thought there was some sort of an alien war going on in space, I mean, so far nothing, right? So far there's no detectable evidence whatsoever of anything out there other than us.
That's right.
But when the thing, if there is, I mean, when and if, right? If the thing comes, if one day we get some sort of undeniable signal, whatever it is, or we see something, or how does that get processed? Like, do you have to go like straight to President Trump and go, "Hey, man"?
I would not do that. No, that's not what I would do.
Well, who is, like, say if it was one of your colleagues?
Yeah, though there is a procedure. It's not even very well publicized as far as I don't know.
Is it a legal procedure? Is there like a
I think it's more self-appointed. I think it's like, you know, people have said, all right, we are the alien detection network.
So you might be able to keep your mouth shut if you like people can't handle this shit.
Yeah. Well, I think that we're not very realistic about these. I think that it could happen, but we're just like with quantum mechanics or artificial intelligence or whatever, we tend to put everything in the frame of what we're immediately used to.
Right.
So we can beam out radio signals into space. We're really good at that, right? So we tend to think that aliens will either be discovered or actually contact us by beaming radio signals at us.
Right.
But that's a horrendously wasteful way to do interstellar communication, right? For one thing, radio waves move at the speed of light. So imagine you're 1,000 light years away. You have no idea what's going on Earth. But you say, well, it's a promising location for life to arise. I know what I'll do. I'll beam a signal at them. Well, how long are you going to beam it? Are you going to turn the telescope on for a month? Then in the whole history of humankind, they better be listening at the exact right month. Otherwise, they're not going to hear it. It's actually way more efficient to send a spacecraft, even though it's much slower. That's okay. You have plenty of time. Send a spacecraft and park it in the system that you want to know about, and then wait for life to arise in that system. So honestly, if we're going to detect evidence for aliens, it's much more likely we're going to find a monolith on the moon or something like that than we're going to hear them in our telescopes.
A monolith on the moon. Wasn't
that
something?
Was a 2001.
Right. But wasn't that something that one of the astronauts said they saw something up there? Some of those astronauts have lost their mind as they got older. And I've always wondered, like Edgar Mitchell was the big one. He's the one who says he's seen some things and says that aliens are real. Yeah. And I always wonder, are those guys getting crazy as they get older, or they're going, look, I got to get some money. I need some attention. What's the best way to do it? Yeah. Tap into that alien market. That alien market's a big market.
They could be perfectly sincere, but look, what you want when you pick who's going to be an astronaut is someone who can fly the spacecraft back, right?
Right.
They don't need to have good judgment about whether or not there are aliens up there. Right. That's not what you're going for.
Right.
So.
They just need to have an understanding of what the task is and how they're going to perform it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Edgar Mitchell was, I think he might have passed away recently. Did he pass away? But he's one of those guys that people always bring up. But I'm not a believer necessarily in, not that I'm not a believer in alien life, but I'm not a believer in any of the people that say they've seen aliens or I did a show for Sci-Fi, and one of the episodes we did, we spent weeks talking to people that are UFO researchers and studying the air quote evidence.
Right.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah. Look, be a good Bayesian. If someone sees some flashing lights in the sky, what is more likely? Alien civilizations, or they're not accurately reporting what they saw? Like, eyewitness testimony is terrible.
Terrible.
And so, especially in these weird cases, it's just very, very dismissible. So
right, and you want to keep an open mind, because if there was a unique event where an alien spacecraft did enter our atmosphere and observe us and then take off, it would be quite fascinating if you could actually get a good read on someone.
I think it'd be hugely important to the history of life on Earth, right? Like human history. If and when we finally discover intelligent life out there somewhere else, that'll be one of the most important events in our history. The idea that it's a 20-foot long flying saucer that comes and visits you in Wyoming is not very plausible.
Well, also the idea of physical beings on board this thing seems counterintuitive. Like,
Yeah.
why would they do that?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to do that anymore. Like,
Right.
we send the Mars rover up there. We get amazing footage. It stays up there forever. It doesn't need food.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not
So that's what
dying.
they'll do. They'll send a rover here.
Yeah.
Not a either a person or a radio wave.
That's what I would imagine. I would imagine it would be, obviously, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking. So if you're getting mad right now, I get
You're
mad
the
at
voice
me too.
of the aliens. That's okay.
I would just assume that it would be some super complicated drone.
Yeah.
And that
I think
what they
that's
would,
right.
yeah, they would try to just take data, observe, maybe get some sort of a visual understanding. And obviously, with the kind of telescopes that we have, like the Himawari 8, when they were 22,000 miles out, we take these incredible high-resolution, detailed video and photographs of the Earth itself. What kind of shit do the aliens
Exactly,
have?
right.
They probably don't need to get anywhere near us, right? I would imagine.
And the weird thing is, there, the Fermi paradox.
Mm-hmm.
They should be here already,
Right.
right? Like the solar system should be buzzing with these drones, and either, well, almost certainly it's not, because it's not clear why they would try to hide from us, really. And if they don't try to hide, they'd be easily noticeable. So there's something we don't understand about life in the universe. Either it's much more rare than we might guess, or for some reason it's not very gregarious. It doesn't go and visit the rest of the stars in the galaxy.
My thought was, and this is obviously a very controversial thought, but no one wants to think that we're the first, right? That's like, well, if there's us, then there's probably more.
Right.
Maybe, right? But maybe it has to happen once. It has to happen for the first time somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Like like a single-celled organism had to become a multi-celled organism. It had to take place through mutation, and it had to take place at one point in time. Well, that time on this planet, at least, it was the first time. One point billions of years ago, right? Why do we? We know that we are the only thing that's ever done that, as far as we know here. So why would we assume that anything else? We might be the tip of the spear.
It's completely possible, I think, and it's also possible that that life happens all the time, but it never becomes multicellular or intelligent, right? Or it becomes intelligent but never builds spaceships. There's many
Right.
ways it could happen, but yes, we could be in the entire observable universe the only spaceship building species right now.
Well, we also have this weird way of defining intelligence by the ability to change your atmosphere or your environment or
Right.
your to build things. Like, that's what we think of as intelligent. Whereas dolphins are obviously extremely intelligent, but they don't really impact their environment much at all, other than biological life, like eating things
Yeah.
and waste and things along those lines. But they don't build structures. They don't keep records. They don't.
And we live on a weird planet that is roughly, a comparable proportion of land to ocean, right? It'd be very easy to imagine planets that were all ocean, that the dolphins were the apex predators, and that was
Yeah.
it, right? And so
They just
would
got
never
really
build
smart.
spaceships.
Really good at eating fish.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they played games and whistled songs, and that was great.
Yeah, well, also the idea that life only has to exist in this Goldilocks zone has always been weird to me.
Oh yeah,
You
that's
know?
very strange. Also, no one that we're already finding exceptions to that, right? Like even here in the solar system, you wouldn't necessarily look to Earth first if you didn't already know. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn are very plausible places to look for the beginning of life, even though they're outside the Goldilocks zone, because it's just different conditions. So I think we should be very, very open-minded about the conditions around other stars where life could form.
Yeah, I mean, we find weird life at the bottom of oceans and volcanic vents where
Yeah.
it's insanely hot, and they find these life forms that are able to thrive
Yeah.
in those conditions that would kill almost everything else.
Yeah. And part of that is, I think that the response to that would be, well, life started in fairly benign conditions and then evolved to survive in these harsher conditions. But I just think that our ability to understand chemistry and biology is not that good, especially hypothetical, speculative chemistry and biology. We should
Right.
be very humble about saying how life needs to be on other planets.
Right. We always assume that it has to have water and it has to
Yeah.
be carbon-based. And
maybe that's right, but we can't say that we know.
right. Did you ever go through a period in your life where you were obsessed or fascinated by aliens?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I certainly, not only aliens, but psychic powers and all this stuff. I was very, interested in all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I became more and more scientific as I aged, and here I am.
Yeah, those are weird things that are somehow or another linked together because I don't want to be mean in saying this, but they're bullshit. Like there were psychic powers or
Yeah.
aliens, and when you bring up the fact that it's very likely these things are bullshit, people get very upset. Like
Yeah.
you're taking away their Santa Claus.